This is Tractor Tuesday Live, hosted by 6th generation Nebraska farmer and Tractor Tuesday founder, Zach Bosley. Join us each week as he sits down with farmers, innovators, dealers, and creators who are enhancing the culture within agriculture. Right here on Tractor Tuesday Live.
Hey, Zach Bosley. We're live. We're here. It's Tractor Tuesday Live. Today, we've got an awesome guest on the show, Michael Hinton. And if you're not familiar with some of Michael's work, you might be, you just may not be aware of it yet. Again, talkingtractors.com, recently inducted into the National Agriculture Hall of Fame. But Michael, if you don't mind, give yourself a little bit of an introduction here for our audience.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Yeah, so Michael Hinton, I am a recent inductee into the National Agricultural Hall of Fame, but also probably what I really promote in addition to the induction is that I founded National Antique Tractor Preservation Day, and this is an effort that started, it goes back a while, back in 2010, but here in the last several years, I have really ramped up my marketing efforts and my communication efforts and just getting the word out across various platforms and throughout the United States to make that a national event. And actually, it's more than just a national event now. Here in the last couple of weeks, it's become a global event through some communications that I've received over in the UK. So, yes.
Yeah, really exciting. And we just wanted to put you on the spot. We're really live. So a lot of people, they come back and they don't necessarily catch our live stream. And, why did you say this? Why did you say that? Hey, we're just live, guys. So, and my wife critiques every word I say. So she'll probably watch the replay.
Mine does as well.
Oh, why did you have to talk about our son? And, so we're literally live, guys. And that's what we do. We need the pressure. And I think it's almost like radio. It kind of brings out, some of these spontaneous things that I think makes it a little bit more fun, at least for me. And, if I can't ruin my business in one bad 5-second soundbite, then, is it even worth the risk? But no, Michael, so many cool things that you've been a part of. And, even up here in Nebraska, I know you're down in Kansas, but I believe the Nebraska legislature recently went ahead and proposed something as well. If you want to talk
Nebraska's
a little bit about
governor actually passed a proclamation making August 22nd National or Antique Tractor Preservation Day in Nebraska. And it's interesting how that came about. So I, again, began this journey way back in 2010 and back in Missouri, actually. I'm born and raised here in Kansas. This is my home state. In fact, I live right now 35 miles from where I was born and raised in Newton, Kansas, but I live in Hutchinson. But so I started this journey back in Missouri, and for 3 consecutive years through Governor Jay Nixon at the time, he blessed me with 3 proclamations, 3 consecutive years to help me get this going. And so life kind of took hold, and my family and I relocated, and we're back home now. We've been back in Kansas the last 6 years. Nice. And so I started this back up again here in my home state. And our Governor Laura Kelly, has also been just as generous in helping me communicate and providing a proclamation for Antique Tractor Preservation Day. And I also held tractor shows in addition to the proclamations. And the past 2 years here in Kansas, I've held a show here in Hutchinson. And after last year, and I also held a show, I guess coordinated a show in Western Kansas as well with a gentleman that actually is in Nebraska. Okay. He helped get one started out in Western Kansas. But at the end of last year, the city, the state, the parties the club members that I worked with said, Michael, what are you going to do for 2026? And I said, it's just ending. I need to kind of think about that. And right after the show came the induction into the National Agricultural Hall of Fame. Well, around November, December time, I really put my hat on and thought, I can hold a tractor show in Hutchinson, Kansas, year after year after year. And I can see how many people I can bring into Hutchinson, Kansas to attend that, and certainly within the state, but I'm not going to have that reach, which is my ultimate goal and vision for Antique Tractor Preservation Day, is to make it a national event.
Yeah.
And so I got to talking to some people, and what I decided to do, I put a banner on my website and said, I want to grow this into a nationally recognized, celebrated event to honor the farmers, the families, the rural heritage, the values, not just the machines, but our rural agricultural heritage. And so I had a call from a gentleman in Nebraska, actually, several months back, and he said, Michael, we want to do this in Nebraska. And I said, that's great. That's exactly what I want to do as well.
Yeah.
And he said, can you help me? And I said, certainly. Okay. So we got together. I pinned the proclamation that went to the governor. It was the gentleman that I was working with sent it on to the governor's office in Nebraska, and it was signed into proclamation. And so I started expanding upon that, and since then Indiana has come on board, Illinois has come on board, and I've got letters out to several other governors and Secretary of Agriculture offices within the United States, and it's just expanding, and that's been the ultimate goal, at least. And the mindset is that, you know, it doesn't need to be one big national event in Hutchinson, Kansas. There are tractor shows and tractor clubs all throughout the United States. Yeah. And everybody should be able to take part in it and celebrate our ag heritage and see a show in their own state. And so that's where this all came about. And so that's been my vision. My long-term vision is to grow this into every state within the United States. And as we were talking before we went on air, it's actually become larger than national now. In addition to the tractor shows that I had, I also did a pictorial postmark with the United States Post Office the past 2 years. And anybody could come into the Hutchinson Post Office and get that postmark, or you could live anywhere in the world, right into the post office, and you could get your postcard or anything stamped with that indicia. Well, we got... The post office gave me back the past 2 years requests that they fulfilled all over the world. Wow. And so it's become global. And here, just in the last 2 weeks, there is a website in the UK that basically, and it's a European or a UK events page where they list all the events, just like what's going on in the United States. We have event pages. And they listed Antique Tractor Preservation Day in the UK, in York, England. And so it's being recognized overseas as well. So
that's awesome. So, yeah. And so you can actually get stamps then that are dedicated for this?
I didn't do it this year. The past 2 years, and in Missouri, when I lived in Missouri in 2010, we had it then. But yes, an individual could write into the Hutchinson Post Office. There was an address. And they're called pictorial postmarks. So they will cancel your stamp with, and last year it was Antique Tractor Preservation Day, as it was the year before. Yeah. And it was open to anyone in the world. And and anyone and everyone wrote in, as well as came in and got that indicia.
Man, that's what we need on our outgoing mail here at Tractor Tuesday. And the only thing we've got that's an antique that's at the main farm, and it would have been my great-great-grandfather's, but it's a 19, I think it's a 38, but I'm telling you, the tires are worth more than the John Deere A. And so you see a lot of A's and other B's and everything else just sitting around, but I guarantee if I actually connected the exhaust back to it, we could get that boy to start. But that's kind of the sad thing. You know, a lot of these pieces that are more sentimental, I mean, truly the used tires that we put on the thing, it's probably worth more than the tractor currently is. But
you know, it all goes back to the stories as well. I know with my own, I've got a 1941 Farmall M, and prior to that, I had 3 other Farmall tractors, and they each have their own sentimental story to them as well.
Well, and some of the neighbors, you know, were talking to my dad about the A, and you know, what some of the other guys did instead of just riding on the hitch or, you know, trying to find a way to ride and help out with dad or grandpa going through the field, you know, I mean, bolting on buckets and, you know, anything to hold the kid. It's, you know, it was kind of child watch and, you know, eyeball as they're cultivating.
Certainly.
type of a deal. So a lot of cool stories there, but
Absolutely.
it's really interesting. And something else that I mentioned to you before we went live, but talkingtractors.com beat Tractor Tuesday this year, and we didn't even know we were up against each other.
And I didn't either.
Yeah, we were the number 3 tractor blog in the country. And we're like, wow, look at all these big blogs that we beat out that we didn't even know we're competing against. And then I was like, well, God, I got a Talking Tractors, and then it all kind of started to click. That's your site, and it's one of the most successful blogs in the world, literally.
And there's a history to that as well. Again, dating this back a little bit, when my family and I lived in Missouri, I started out with my first antique tractor, which was a 1949 Farmall Cub, and then I went to a 1942 Farmall H. And the community in which we live was a small community in Missouri, and I was looking for parts and all sorts of items to preserve and restore these tractors. And it was hard to find in the little community that we lived in. So I started out with a legal pad, and I was writing down people's phone numbers that I had called. I was writing down email addresses, companies and tractor part companies that I could get parts from. Anyways, I filled a full legal page full of phones, emails, companies, and I thought, there's got to be an easier way, or it's just me. I'm just not figured it out yet. So I took that list and I compiled it and put it on a website. And that website I still have today. It directs right into talkingtractors.com. But at that time, it was the antiquetractorshow.com, and you can still go out to it today. But that was the start of Talking Tractors. So it's just over a period of about 17 years now. 16 years has grown to where it is today.
Yeah, it's really impressive. And we were shocked we were on any sort of list that was positive. So we were happy to get the compliment.
No, that's great news. I appreciate you sharing that with me.
Well, and it was by Feedsy, and that's like the main, source of all things blog. And again, I'm extremely ignorant for having a tech company. There's just so many things that just go right by me or over my head. And, it's hard to catch them all, but we were excited to be on that list with you. So again, if you haven't been to talkingtractors.com, it's a wealth of knowledge. There's a ton of information there. And I think if you want to train your AI model on a lot of interesting data points and just unique features in history, it's all right there for the taking.
All right there.
Great information. So I guess, leading up, I mean, it's we're on the cusp of the big holiday, then 8/22, so August 22nd.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's your schedule look like then for the rest of the week here and into the big weekend?
Well, I'm excited to share. I know for those that watch U.S. Farm Report this weekend, TalkingTractors.com and Antique Tractor Preservation Day will be featured not just this weekend, but next weekend. I'll be making an announcement about that here later this evening. So that's coming up. And then, really touching base and visiting some tractor shows of myself around here. We've got a show in Western Kansas that'll be held during Antique Tractor Preservation Day. And I know there's several in Illinois, Indiana, and Nebraska as well that are going on. Just a plethora of shows. So, taking in some shows and then providing some feedback after it's all over, after the 22nd. So, yeah. Well, what you should have pushed for was like a whole month of a holiday, so that you got to shoot big and then just settle at 1 or 2
Well,
days.
it's interesting you say that. I had a conversation with a gentleman last night, and he was in Illinois. We were talking about 6:45, 7 o'clock, and he said the very same thing, only he said, you should make it like Christmas. He said it should just be a holiday all throughout the year.
Right.
And he said there's enough tractor shows going on all throughout the year that it really could be. And I said, well, that's a great idea. So
yeah. Well, and that's the cool thing about the antique and some of the collectibles. And then our guy Kyle came up with this. He coined it as a capable collectible because, there's some pieces out there that you can actually still use in the modern operation, and I think that's always fun. And, a lot of guys probably default think like a 40/20 or, something like that. Now the young farmers, they're capable collectibles like a 90s boxcar Magnum, or anything with a Soundgarden cab that's a John Deere, or, so those are that new, it's interesting. It's almost like listening to classic rock. That means a lot of different things. I'm assuming, what your age may be. And, my dad's version of classic rock is probably like early 70s type music. My older brothers, and everybody has just an era that they're more partial to.
Yeah.
Just from your experience.
Yeah. That's another great point. Again, going back to last year when I finished the tractor show that we had here in Hutch, the gentleman I was working with in Nebraska that had the one in Western Kansas, Bird City, Kansas, came to me afterwards and he said, Michael, he said, if there's one thing that we need to do as a whole, not just you, but the tractor clubs, everybody in agriculture, he said, is get the word out, but involve the younger generation. He said, here in Bird City, when we had this show this past year, he said, I invited schools, I invited the FFA classes all out to the show that we had. And he said, you'd be astounded by the number of kids, youth, that weren't aware of the heritage and the tractors. And he said it opened their minds and thoughts to our heritage. And he said, and that's the message we need to deliver. So
well, and I tell this story semi-frequently, but it's just it's interesting to see the change in technology. And maybe they started with steam, but before all that, my family, my ancestors, they weren't running horses, they were running mules. And, they had those teams waiting in the tree line. And on one pass with my planter, this is probably 2014, I was able within the opening discs to catch a horseshoe, but probably for, a mule or donkey or something that was smaller.
Sure.
And then I caught my dad's waterproof Verizon cell phone that is probably under Altel that he lost irrigating. And then what was the third thing? But I caught basically something from 3 different centuries all in one pass on a field that our family had farmed for probably now we're probably about 137 years. But it's just
amazing.
You can see all these changes progress, and a lot of folks, even like my son who's too young to understand this yet, but we're a pretty darn young country.
Yeah, we are.
A lot of this innovation, it's happened very rapidly. And I think that's what's so cool when I look at some of the antique tractors, really there was a lot of capable technology 100 years ago now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's really cool to see, some of that history there and just how this has all really evolved. And, there's always been this big fear in ag that the big machines are going to take over. Well, really, I mean, anything beyond, a horse or a mule and, 2 to 4 rows, it really is a big machine. We're already there.
Right. Already there.
And I guess if you're a farmer, just look over to your sides and, high five the guy next to you because we made it. And I don't know if with all the automation and all the talk of everything of the future, I think the business models will change. But I think the land ownership and being good stewards of the land, it has to remain.
It does. And the heritage and the family values that go with that. Absolutely.
Well, and that's the biggest part. And I always tell folks, our number one export in the great state of Nebraska are our people. And we need to find a way to keep more, folks in the rural communities because we need them. And I'm really lucky to grow up on the edge of a town of 25,000 people.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to just be that isolated, in the panhandle of Nebraska or, anywhere like in the Gypsum Hills or where I used to be at in Kansas. It's not as easy to be that isolated.
Yeah.
With the technology, you're almost more distant at that point.
Right.
And I think the heritage is a big part of what you have and your message and, everything that you convey to the masses. It's, it's really quite impressive what you've done so far. But, the way I feel about it, you're just kind of just beginning.
Oh, that's 100% true. There is so much more to what I want to do and that needs to be done. And I feel like days I'm crawling, but it's starting to make an impact. But there, as you said, there is so much more. I'm just getting started with this.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I got a really good point of view from our new friend Diamond Dallas Page. Awesome guy. But, something that he said that I'll repeat till I die is, I was an overnight sensation 8 years in the making, and a lot of that groundwork that you do, nobody really gets to see it, and then now you're starting to get acknowledged. You're starting to get some of this recognition, but this is nothing new. I mean, this all started back in Missouri or even prior to that.
In 2010, that's when this all really took took hold or started taking shape.
Yeah.
And I can remember then, where I was at then and where I'm at now. And it's not an overnight, but it's a progression, and it's starting to take hold. So
are you paying attention to all the new machinery that comes out as you look back at some of the more collector pieces?
Oh yeah, certainly.
Okay.
And I stay in touch with Case IH in Racine, Wisconsin. I've got some contacts up there.
Nice.
And through this development of my website and Antique Tractor Preservation Day and my induction in the Hall of Fame, my wife and I were actually invited to the White House here back in March for the Great American Ag Celebration.
Nice.
So we were on the south lawn of the White House, and they had 3 of the brand newest. They had a Fendt, they had a John Deere, and they had the new Magnum, I think. Farmall tractor, or the Case tractor.
Yeah.
They were all there out on the south lawn, as were we. So it was nice to see those. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned that because we just had a question pop up, I think from YouTube, it looks like, but they were asking, does Michael have a favorite, like new models of tractors?
Favorite new models? Boy, I mean, there are so many. I like the new Case Magnum model that's come out. I can say that for certain. So
yeah, well, and their cabs are a lot better. I'm actually sitting, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm on an AFS Connect Magnum office chair.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got mixed emotions, but I'm happy that Case IH does unique things like this, and creates an office chair within their parts store. So a lot of guys didn't even know that when I ordered it up. But maybe the question was alluding to just favorite models in general. From all the collector units that you've seen, what's something near and dear to your heart?
Well, certainly the Farmalls, but I'll name 3 actually.
Okay.
My grandfather was a dairy farmer and a row crop farmer here about 45 miles down the road. He passed when I was very young, but that kind of agriculture's in my blood, if you want to kind of define it as that. But so I have a whole cabinet full of Case IH hurdle tractors that are very near and dear.
Yeah.
I've been looking since I was yay high for my grandfather's Case IH tractor. Have not found it yet, but there's a lot of people out there that are it goes back to the stories and the memories.
Yeah.
I'll find it one day. So certainly that. Farmalls, and that has a story to it as well. When I married my wife in 1989, I kind of married into tractors. Her dad has about 18 Farmall tractors, various makes, models, sizes, and stages of restoration. So, which is what got me into Farmall tractors and why I have them, my 1941 M. Because it was a shared project. When we lived in Missouri, he would visit and we would work on the tractors. And then I have a liking to Olivers as well. I just have always, liked them as well. So, no particular one in general, but I have Farmalls, and I've had 3 Farmalls over my.
So what's the best collection you've ever seen of like a privately owned antique tractor collection?
Gee, there's been several in Iowa, and there was a gentleman in Iowa that just sold out here recently, and I can't think of his name, but yeah, he had there was a huge auction up there, and I can't, and they were all Farmall, but just a tremendous amount of tractors that he had. So
yeah, I had a really cool gentleman I met that it's amazing how the world works, but just from a random cold call on an unrelated business and client, and this is probably 10 years ago, and he goes, well, where'd you say you were from? And I said, Hastings, Nebraska. And he goes, oh, I left Hastings in 1977, and was rapping all this off. And name was Duke Hemberger. And that was his nickname, but man, I wish you could have met him while he's still alive.
Yeah.
I was able to take my dad through some of his sheds, and he was living in Loveland, Colorado. And holy cow, this guy had everything. It didn't even make sense. And how he crammed everything in. If he didn't have over 1,000 tractors, nobody did. But I mean, he had, rare factory variants that were, made for Oliver, but made for another brand, and just some of the probably rarest collection you will never see again. I'm hoping to reach out to his son. I hope they kept everything. But knowing them, they probably donated it to St. Jude's, or they did something like that. I mean, he had even Indy pace cars. I mean, but it was 99% ag.
That was another goal and dream, and still is on my website. There's a picture of a building that's still my ultimate goal, is to have a museum one day. I've got behind me.
Oh,
you can
wow.
see that tractor that was given to me by a dear friend to be the caretaker of, and it is a Case steam tractor.
Okay.
And it works.
Oh, wow.
I don't power it up in the house here, but it's got its own platform. And then I've got over 100 Ertl tractors just here in my home office here.
Yeah, really cool.
Of different makes, models, and colors. And so,
some other friends of the show that we ought to get on, but you need to go out to Lidditz, Pennsylvania. You ever been out there? Have you ever seen the Outback toy store?
I have not, but I have family in Pennsylvania, just near Carlisle. So I don't know if that's near.
I don't know. Yeah, I flew in. I can't remember what the airport was, but I went out to meet the guys that own Outback Toys. And what an awesome, I mean, this was like a random Wednesday or Thursday morning. I go into their main retail shop at like 9 a.m. The store's packed. And it's not even, I mean, maybe it was in that fourth quarter. It was probably early November last year.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about a toy store. They're one of the largest, if not the largest distributor of toy tractors.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, it'd blow your mind at some of the rare, one of one and one of five type toys that they have there. But yeah, and it's definitely worth the trip to go. It's kind of might almost be the holy grail of toy stores.
Wow.
For farm machinery. Yeah, they've got.
I had the big ones, and I thought, I need some. I started with just a few, and it's grown to over 100 now here in my office. So, and I keep bringing them home. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Never really ends. And it used to mean more, when you're a farm kid, and if your family could actually afford to buy a new tractor, you get that 1/16 back home, and made you feel like your dad or grandpa, running around with that thing. But a lot of cool nostalgia, and that's what's cool about your message and everything that you're building, and just to have these recognized holidays like this. That big day, and I love the date. We're a big fan of too. And so 8/22 is something I'll always remember.
Well, there's a story to that too. That date was actually picked by our Kansas governor.
Okay.
Several years back when I started this back here in Kansas again. There wasn't it wasn't a date that I picked. It came with the proclamation, and I said, well, that's the day.
Yeah, there you go.
And I've kept it that way, and all three of her proclamations have always been on August 22nd, and so I made it the national day.
That's perfect. No, we'll start to we'll put it on the calendar here at Tractor Tuesday, and we'll make sure we point it out every year. And
thank you.
No, I think it ought to be a part of something. It's a big thing, and I think there's so much going on with agriculture. I do think
there is.
Unfortunately, right now the guys that are still producers and especially in row crop, the sentiment's been so negative.
Yes.
And it's been, but I do think there's a glimmer of hope here, and for, I think farmers are just eternal optimists, and it's just surprising what 30 cents on the future board can do. A lot of those frowns are starting to turn, and they're coming upside down. And another comment here. Yeah. Teamwork makes the dream work. And
it was agriculture that built this country, and we're celebrating 250 years this year. And agriculture played a huge part in all of that. So.
Yeah, it really did. And we're fortunate. So much innovation comes out of ag country.
Absolutely.
And if you look at, I know down in Kansas, there's a lot of history there too, but I'm a little bit more well-versed here in Nebraska. And, there's so many machine shops. There's so many guys that just had an idea and busted out the welding torch, and kind of hacked around and made viable products.
Absolutely, they did.
I mean, we've even got a farm friend here in Hastings. He just came up with an idea because he kept always spilling engine oil, and 3D printed a funnel system. And got the guys sold thousands of these funnels now, freehandfunnel.com. And, it's just, there's so much innovation because you have to figure out the solution.
Sure. Absolutely. And it was the farmer that did that. It's like, well, I've got to come up with something and I'll make it.
Yeah, no. And you got to feed the world in theory. And, and I think that's what's cool. We're actively doing it. We're playing that role, and there's a lot of positive to come, but it's a tough industry. And I think that's why there's so much passion around things like this. And, like you love to inject here in the conversation, just the heritage, the history, there's a lot of big H's here that we could really, dial into with, all the things with antique tractors.
Absolutely.
And, but again, 8/22, that's the day. And
that's the day.
Yeah, we'll put that as a recurring event here at the calendar at Tractor Tuesday. And Tractor HQ, if you get any of our software, we'll make that standard on the calendar.
Oh, that's
8/22 is
awesome.
marked off. It's a big one for us and the team. But hey, Michael, we better get ready to wrap this up. But
all right,
outside of talkingtractors.com, is there any other socials or anywhere you want to point the audience to?
I've got a social page, which is also Talking Tractors. You'll find it on Facebook.
Okay.
So I'm out there, and that and my website, and look for me either place. Like I say, I make posts on my website as well as my social page constantly, almost weekly, sometimes daily.
Okay.
So,
all right. Is there any sort of nonprofit element a part of this yet?
That's the next thing as well. I've been diving into that as well, because that's the next thing that I've been wanting to do. And it's just finding the right organization and nonprofit that I want to dive that into with. But that's coming.
Okay. In my opinion, I think it ought to just be your own thing. I don't think you need to necessarily be a part of anybody else's, because you've done so much legwork here, and I think it could be really informative, educational, you name it. There could be some benefit there.
Yeah.
But, and then again, this weekend, I know it's the big holiday, but what time's the slot when you're going to appear on, what was it, Ag Daily or which?
It is U.S. Farm Report.
Oh, U.S. Farm Report. Okay, let me write that down.
That's a great question. It's Farm Journal's U.S. Farm Report.
Yep.
And there will be a post on my website probably later this evening here, as well as on my Talking Tractors Facebook page.
Okay.
But it varies by where you're at in the United States. The show airs on Saturday, but it also airs on Sunday. I know here in Kansas, U.S. Farm Report airs at 5 a.m. on Sunday morning.
Okay.
I don't know, and there will be some information on the post that I make.
Okay.
So I can't. It says check your local listings. So I can't speak on where else in the country at what times and days.
Okay.
But it will air this weekend. It will also air, and that will be on this weekend's episode. Will be Tractor Tales. If you've ever watched U.S. Farm Report.
Yep.
So. That will air this Sunday. Here in Kansas. Next weekend, it will be on the National Antique Tractor Preservation Day itself. And then following that will be the Hall of Fame induction. And that segment is not yet scheduled, but it's looking like it may be the third weekend. But the next 2 weekends on U.S. Farm Report, there will be segments on both National Antique Tractor Preservation Day and Tractor Tales on U.S. Farm Report. Yeah.
Well, great. And do us a favor, make sure to respond to our little email thread. Let's get a mailing address, and we'll make sure we get you some gear and make.
That'd be great. I most certainly will. Yeah. Well, this has been great. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you.
Oh no, it's awesome, and we're big fans of what you do, and it's just it's exciting for us to put a face to the movement that you've helped start, and not even help start, that you created.
I'm a big fan of it. Like I said, we were talking before we went on. I get your emails and I read them every day. So
that's great. Well, no, it's we're slowly building, and we're hoping to get to the level that some of the national work that you've done. I mean, that's just it's something we look up to as guys like you that have actually put foot to pavement and got after it and got something accomplished.
Well,
so we're proud of all the things that you've done, Michael. And I guess with that, make sure to check out talkingtractors.com. It's the best tractor blog, according to Feedsy, for 2026. Unfortunately, Tractor Tuesday is the number 3 blog, but we'll take it for being a new company. We're just happy to be on the same list with some of the big powerhouses like yours. And
thank you.
So it's an awesome brand. But again, check out talkingtractors.com. We'll make sure we put a description here underneath the video. We'll update it. More of the U.S. Farm Report links, we'll put those in once those go live. And
they'll be live this evening.
Yeah, we're excited. But for everybody here at Tractor Tuesday, again, we're honored to have you, Michael. For everybody in the audience, Michael Hinton, check out talkingtractors.com. A lot of big things to come, and put it on your calendar forever. August
22nd.
That's the date. But for everybody here at Tractor Tuesday, I'm Zach Bosley. Thanks again for checking in with us, and we'll talk to you next time.
till the soil